Continuing my series of lucid dream experiences from 2016. In this video I've got 5 stories to tell, but most of them are really brief and short, and the lucidity is not so fully developed, but it's more a sense of higher awareness within a normal dream, you could say. They're quite diverse. See what you think. So let's start. So the first one, very brief. I was in a house with a girl and a guy, but I was also the guy. So I say I was in the house. What I was actually doing is observing this girl and this guy in this house, and I felt that I was the guy, but I was taking an observer perspective on this. And the girl was had some special knowledge about things out of this world, and she was teaching the guy how to create an energy band around the house. Not something I could see or view, but there was a sense of this energy that's circling this house in all directions. And she was teaching this guy to create it, to maintain it, and protect this band. And it turned the house into a sort of haven of healing energy. This is what I understood. And the idea was you could sit in this house and you could focus that healing energy outwards to any situation or any person right across the world, and therefore heal them or heal the situation. And it needed protecting because apparently there was some kind of organization somewhere out there in the world who were out to destroy these havens, whatever they were or wherever they were. So you could sit there and literally right all the wrongs of the world. So I wasn't lucid in that dream as such, but I was aware of being the observer and recognizing the guy in it as being myself. So some level of heightened awareness there. Let's move on. The next one involves a cat, a talking cat. And again, this one I wasn't fully lucid, but I was aware of being able to make certain choices than just follow the story. I found myself in an alleyway, a dark alleyway. I think it was night time, and I was cornered there by a small cat, a female cat, and this cat was really clingy, meowing around me, and then started to climb up me, which is freaky enough anyway in a dream when an animal starts to do that. But at some point it actually started talking, or I was able to understand its thinking. And what it was doing was asking me for something to eat, and started to explain that it had young and they were starving and really needed some food. And I said, well, I don't have any food, but I'll go and get some. And my intention was, once I've got rid of this cat, I'm off and I'm not going to come back. And the cat jumped off me and wandered away, and I still heard it muttering or thinking to itself that this guy isn't coming back, he's another waster, he's lying to us. And at that point I started to feel a little sorry, but also a little disappointed in myself that I tried to get rid of it with a lie. So I thought, well, why not? Why not just go and get some food and bring it to the cat and see what happens? So that's what I did. I found a store, don't know how, a store popped up in my dream, and I walked in looking for cat food. There was a small counter and lots of people standing at the counter being served, and I was stood behind them, peering over them to the shelves at the back of the counter, and I saw tins of cat food there. But I didn't have a tin opener, so that would have been useless. And I had this sense that the cat food was old or off or something, not really good. And I decided, well, I'll buy some vegetables for it instead. Not the right choice for cats, I'm sure, but it felt right in this dream. So I sort of pushed my way through this crowd of people and got myself served really quickly, and got some vegetables and paid for them as well, and wandered off. And I could sense also the fact that most of the crowd were really angry that I'd pushed in line. But I wasn't concerned about them, I was more concerned about the cat. So I had this food, and I wandered back to the alleyway to try and find this cat. And when I got back, it had changed somewhat. It was still night time, but it wasn't an empty alleyway. There seemed to be like artists' studios lining the sides of the walls, and lights inside, so the studios were lit up, and you could see people at work in them. And I couldn't see the cat anywhere for a while. I thought, she's gone, it's a waste of time. But then, as I turned around to leave, the cat came towards me. And again, I could still hear it thinking, or talking, and it said, I remember you. You were going to bring some food. And I said, well, yeah. I promised I would, and I have, and here's some food. And this cat, she was so grateful, unbelievably grateful that she hadn't been lied to. And she started telling me about the young that she had and how often she had to disappoint them by asking for food from strangers and not being able to get any, and having to go home empty-handed. And I remember saying, well, yeah, this time you don't. You can actually feed them and make them happy. And that's pretty much where it all ended. I either drifted off into deeper sleep or I woke up from it. I don't remember now. But it was an interesting dream with an element of lucidity that it was worth noting down and worth sharing on this video. Move on to the next one. Also very brief, I was in a shop with my ex, and this lady is a little older than I am, and we still have good contact and everything, but we were in a shop together because she needed to do some shopping. It was a clothes shop. I had to say that. It was a clothes shop and she needed to buy some new clothes. So I was hanging around. She'd found some clothes on a rack, went to the changing rooms to try them on, and I was just hanging around waiting for her in this shop. And there was a clock on the wall, and I was watching this clock, and this is where the lucidity clicks in, because I remember thinking, time in dreams is exactly the same as time when you're waking. The same sense of time passing, not that it goes any quicker when you're watching a clock in dreams as it does when you're in awakened state. And I commented on this to one of the women in the shop. one of the shop owners, and she said, yeah, it's like this in all dreams. And she also commented on the fact that this was a dream experience. And I remember thinking at that moment, maybe I'm having a sort of mutual dream with somebody. Maybe I know this woman, or maybe I don't, but maybe we're dreaming this together. Couldn't ever check up on it because I didn't know her, and I didn't know where the shop was, so that was out of the question. But I had that sense that this could be a shared dream experience. Anyway, nothing else happened spectacular in there, except it seemed to fall into a normal dream then, because my ex came out of the changing rooms, and suddenly the floor isn't there anymore. There is a sort of ice rink, an ice floor, and she walks out of the changing room onto this ice, and as she gets to the centre, closer towards me, the ice melts and she falls into the water. And as she falls into the water, she falls into a different room of this building and comes out another door, soaking wet and looking about 20 years younger. And in my limited lucidity, I remember thinking this was strange, but not too strange considering it's a dream. But that was that one. I don't know what to think further about that. It was interesting to have that time concept playing around in my mind while I'm watching a clock. And usually when I go shopping with her in real life, time goes really slowly. So maybe it has something to do with that. Interesting. Let's move on. Okay, I've got two UFO stories now. One was a lot briefer than the other one, but they both happened in the same week actually, the end of September 2016, so I'm going to put them together. The first one, I was in a park area, again with my ex and our son, and there were a lot of other people around as well, and suddenly I noticed a light in the sky, and I knew immediately it was a UFO, and it was flying around, and other people were watching it. I had a camera with me as well, a video camera, so I started videoing it as I saw other people in the crowd doing that too. And we were watching this for a little while, fly around, and then suddenly it seemed to crash, and it crashed on the other side of a hedge. So we hurried round there to see what had happened, and we found it again, but it wasn't a big UFO. It was only about an inch in diameter, and it was a little circular disc, and it was nestled between the leaves of this bush. And I picked it up, and it seemed to be made of plastic. It had some writing on the side. I couldn't decipher it. So I shook it around. It looked more like a toy, so I shook it around like a toy. And there was a little cap on the top you could open up, so I did that. And inside was a little plastic figurine of a human pilot. And then it changed. And I found we were, me, my ex, our kid, we were inside the ship then. And the pilot wasn't plastic anymore. It was a full-grown humanoid, I say humanoid very carefully there, humanoid pilot of this ship. And he started talking to us while we were looking around his cockpit, and he was telling us he was actually from the star system Syria, and that he'd lost his way. And that's where it ended. I woke up and I remembered that idea of Syria, so I did some research on that. Didn't bring any relevance up, but it was funny that it should come into my dream, because I wasn't really thinking about UFOs or the Syrian star system around that time. But a couple of days later I had another one very, very similar to this, but much more dramatic, really. Again, I was in a park area, again with my ex, again with my son, and again with crowds of people all around. And the UFOs came, and it wasn't one this time. It was a swarm of them, literally hundreds and hundreds of lights flying across the sky as a flock of birds, massive flock of birds, swirling around each other, crossing each other, dancing around each other, as it were. Lots of different shapes, lots of different sizes, from small 1-inch sizes to massive full ships, all glowing in multicolours. It was just a magnificent light show. And they did this for about a minute. I mean, again, I was filming it and other people were filming it. It was just too amazing not to. And then suddenly they all sped off into the distance and disappeared over the horizon. Except one. One got caught up. One had come down and got caught up in a bush among the leaves again. So we ran to that, and I could film it again, zoom right in, and it was like, it was about the size of a butterfly, and it seemed to be trapped like a butterfly on these leaves. And I reached out my hand and I picked it up and I let it just hover on top of my hand. And I put my other hand next to it and I watched it move from one hand to the other, the way an insect or a butterfly would crawl across your hand, not forcing anything but just tipping it over to move onto my other hand. Very, very light, very light. It's almost like a translucent bubble of light. And then it flew off, like a butterfly flies off, and disappeared into the distance. And I thought that was the end of it, but it wasn't, because the whole flock came back again and spent another minute or so flying around the sky to give us a show. It felt like they were doing this for our enjoyment. A great, massive, fantastical show of light. And as they were flying around then, I noticed, especially the bigger ships, there were streams of bubbles, seemed to be bubbles, flying out in the wake behind each one of these ships as they flew around. And then they disappeared again. And I woke up. And I woke up with just this sense of wonder and awe, because it was definitely done for at least my enjoyment, because it was my dream. Just an incredible sight, an incredible experience as well. I didn't have time to contemplate the level of my lucidity while I was in it. I was just so aback with watching this show that, you know, I think I was lucid, but it wasn't important. The show was just enough, just as a dream, just to enjoy. So spectacular, and I'll never forget it. I still have the images in my head now. And I've had since then a few very similar experiences in dreams even with more lucidity, and they're always amazing. So is anything out there? I'm waiting to see them in this realm as well, as some people say they have. Maybe I'll get the chance to do that one day. But that's it, 5 short little stories for this video, and one more video to go, and I'll have covered all of 2016, and that's that's coming up shortly, so I'll see you then. Till then, bye bye.